So, why does yoga make us feel so emotional? The way that trauma works is that it's held in the cells of our bodies. And so, when we experience a trauma, it's usually associated with an unwanted feeling, a feeling like sadness or stress or overwhelm or upset. And we are, as a culture, as a society, very used to not wanting to experience these types of uncomfortable feelings. Evidenced by, parents who say, don't cry, it's okay, right? And that's all in an effort to not want their child to feel pain, right? Not in an effort to hurt. But because of this culture of, don't cry, don't feel, when we experience trauma, the emotions that we are naturally feeling, we are resisting, we are denying in that moment, as if they're not happening. And so instead of recognizing and creating space for that emotion, instead we're shoving it into the cells of our body, where it later comes out as, illness or injury or burnout, or however it shows up, anger, all sorts of unwanted ways that it shows up later. And so if we were to experience trauma in the way that we are meant to experience it, the way that animals experience it in nature, when there is a traumatic event, whatever level of trauma that means, trauma can range from something that doesn't seem to be a very big deal to something that seems to be a very big deal. Animals are used to experiencing that trauma and immediately integrating it. So feeling exactly what they feel in that moment. Animals physically shake it off. You often will see children doing the same thing. So if you think of a toddler, when they have a traumatic experience, maybe that traumatic experience is their parent saying, no, you can't have that candy, or whatever it might be. They throw a full temper tantrum. And as adults, we're like, whoa, it's kind of a big deal over just a piece of candy. But in actuality, they are practicing the healthiest form of integration of their trauma by allowing themselves to feel the fullest range of their emotional expression. And so then that charge from the trauma gets integrated. So now, as adults who have been taught and conditioned to believe that we shouldn't experience highly charged emotions, or if we do, there's something wrong, we need to, we need to change, we need to just be happy, stop crying, figure out a way to fix it rather than holding space for the emotion itself. What happens is then we are denying what is. We are denying the reality and essentially creating this energy of resistance. And when we try to stop what is, when we try to stop the flow of reality, in this case a highly charged emotion, we are creating stagnation. And stagnation breeds disease, right? We know this, right? Just look at sitting water in a hot environment, right? It breeds disease, the stillness, versus water that's flowing across the rocks in a river. It's constantly replenished. Most often you can drink that type of water. And so when we essentially stagnate our emotional body by not wanting to feel the uncomfortable emotion that is present at the moment of the trauma, we create this opportunity for a gap in experiencing presence. And this can look different for so many people, right? They might go to an addiction like drinking or smoking. The response might be to just completely disassociate mentally be unconscious and not with the present reality, because the emotion is so uncomfortable and we're so used to not experiencing that emotion. So then throughout our life and throughout our experience, I have to just share with you this beautiful raining down of leaves. Speaking of flow, that's happening here in my yard. I love it when this happens. Speaking of movement. So speaking of movement is health, right? Movement is what keeps disease from forming and from cultivating and growing to be something worse. And so then in our life later on, we start to have these opportunities. And this is, essentially how karma works in Eastern philosophy, is that the life that your soul is experiencing is going to be presented with many, many opportunities to integrate that trauma, to integrate that charged emotion that at the moment you either weren't able to feel or you chose to resist, right? And so you will continuously receive these opportunities for experiences, which in psychology are called triggers, right? So it's an experience where you are presented with the opportunity to feel that emotion, to feel that response to whatever the trauma was. And then in this opportunity, we get to choose, right? So we have the option, we have the opportunity to decide whether we can create space for that charged emotion and feel it, thereby integrating that experience, integrating that traumatic experience, or we have the opportunity to, again, disassociate, to ignore, to shove, to stagnate, so that there is more opportunity for these situations to present themselves in the future, or for disease to fester within us. And so it's nice to shift the narrative around this idea of trigger, or any interruption in life, it's perceived interruption, and to change it to the idea of an opportunity, right? This is an opportunity for me to integrate the lessons that have been presented to me and will continue to be presented to me until I fully feel them. So I often talk to my yoga students about how the mind is very much like a child. It will try to get your attention very gently, over and over and over again, like a child tapping you on the shoulder. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And if we continuously say, no, not right now, I'm too busy to experience that, or I'm too busy, or I'm too, I'm too happy right now, I don't want to experience, the sadness or the stress or the whatever this event offered us. I can't feel that right now. The child trying to get the adult's attention will start to get louder, right? We'll start to poke harder. We'll start to scream, throw a fit. Mommy, I need your attention, right? And more often than not, when we go to that child and say, okay, yes, what is it that you need? They just needed a moment to be seen and heard, right? They want to share with you what they had for dinner, or they want to tell you, that they love you, or that they're sad, right? And so just like with a child, we wouldn't deny their reality and say, no, like, don't feel sad right now, right? We would say, oh, you're feeling sad. Okay. Do you want to tell me more about it? So the mind is doing the same thing. It's trying to get our attention quietly, by first of all being presented with opportunities to experience these emotions, and in other ways, it's bringing these thoughts up. So especially when we start to practice meditation and ways of calming the mind is deliberately, once we're able to calm the incessant chatter of the mind, the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, is able to kind of bubble up to the surface. And this is like that little child saying, excuse me, trying to get our attention. And so when a thought arises in a stillness meditation, we have the opportunity to integrate that thought by, looking at it, taking it by the shoulders. Yes, what is it? What is it that you need? Oh, sadness is present. Okay. We have space for that. We have time for that, right? And so fully being with it and fully feeling whatever it is that essentially your inner child needs to hear, needs to feel, rather, needs to be heard, needs to feel, needs to express, rather than, no, I don't have time for that, shoving it becomes stagnant, and then it festers. So again, as the child gets louder and louder and louder, that's the metaphor is, first it's a whisper, an opportunity, an experience to fully feel the emotion, the charge, or a whisper, a little thought in the mind trying to get your attention. And eventually, when those don't work, that tapping gets louder and stronger and stronger and stronger, and comes out eventually either in the breath body as disturbed breathing, or in the physical body as some illness, some sickness, some injury, some kind of burnout, so that it finally gets our attention, right? And so this is something that yoga teaches us. This is the way that we hold and store trauma in the body. Again, health is movement. And so by allowing ourselves to feel that charge, that emotion, rather than denying it and shoving it and causing it to be stagnant, allows for the flow of creation, which is natural. So everything in matter is constantly moving, constantly flowing. And we only suffer when we try to hold that constantly flowing essence of matter in stagnation. So when we try to hold it, I often refer to the analogy of trying to catch a waterfall in your hands. There's so much effort involved, and you will suffer so much if you are tied too much to the goal of holding that water and not letting it slip through your hands, versus allowing the water to flow. And so that's just the representation of allowing what is to be as it is. If tears want to come, that is literally trauma leaving your body, and you can envision each tear releasing and pulling the trauma out of the body. You don't have to analyze. So when you're in these emotionally charged experiences, you don't have to, your logical mind is offline, and you don't have to analyze, because the simple act of moving the emotion is integrating the experience. So yeah, I hope that this helps you to understand how trauma works in the body and how it comes out as illness, and in a stronger way, or how it can come out as illness later on. And I hope that you are able to experience your emotions and let it flow.